I am Laura Ladwig with the Friends of Via de Oro National Wildlife Refuge, and also the Mallory Center for Community Geography at UNM. I have two part-time dream jobs, and so I have been. I've studied geography and more than human geography, the relationship between our world and our human world and the rest of the living community, of which we are a part. And so I'm very excited to talk about. It's my favorite subject. So thank you, Amos. So everyone needs a habitat. We certainly need one, and we're really good at acquiring that habitat. And it's so easy to share your space with wildlife and just doing little things. And we want everyone to do as many things as possible, but it's just so easy to get started and do things to benefit our wild neighbors. We've Everyone, I think, has probably seen some of your wild neighbors in your yard and hopefully enjoyed experiencing that. And you can experience so much more when you actively start caring for your space as a place to share. And what I would like to dive into today is a little bit about the how you use your water to share your space. And so spending your water for wildlife. I heard that concept, and uh, spending our actually borrowing it from spending it for the communities who have less green space and fewer resources, and then that extends for humans and our more than human community. And so you can create beautiful spaces that make your yard a place that you want to be and also a place our wild neighbors can be. On the left, we've got a view of Via de Oro, the habitat garden there. A little bit later in the season when the prairie sunflowers are blooming, and then just a simple backyard habitat that's just getting started. We don't want people to think that you have to be able to hire a landscaper to make a difference to create an amazing habitat. Adding little bits of habitat is the way to get started, and it's um, so easy and so helpful. So every bit counts. And so I wanted to dive in to some of the different resources. And Amos mentioned the Water Authority's resources, which are fabulous. And I've been inspired by their plant list and our Bernalillo County's plant list. And then we created one for our program. Just such an amazing wealth of information, telling where you can plant and how you can be benefiting the our whole community. And so the Water Authority and Bernalillo County have these plant lists. The Bernalillo County one actually is focused on green stormwater infrastructure so that you can plant your water and plant your plants in places where they can benefit that rainwater from that rainwater the most. And so these are just incredible local resources. And then we developed our plant list with more of a focus on the sharing space with wildlife to let you know that we have about 250 plants that are fabulous for wildlife. And they're not the only plants fabulous for wildlife, but they are a great place to get started. And we do have symbols for ones that also it's for the metro area, but ones that are for the East Mountains as well, ones that do well in container gardening, in those smaller containers on a balcony or patio. We want everyone to get involved because even a container garden with pollinator plants is going to help those pollinators move around the area and find the resources that they need. And we keep adding categories, and we're actually working with Bernalillo County and the Water Authority to make a list that has all of this information and is more easily navigable. But I'm going to show you how you can use them together while that is in process. With our guide, we also have an iNaturalist guide, and iNaturalist is this amazing resource, and it's developed by the community. It is a place where people all around the world report wildlife sightings, and we encourage people uh, to use it. We created this guide for our plant list so that you can look up the different plants on the list and see what they look like and see where their geographic distribution. But it's also a resource when you want to learn more about a plant or any living being other than domesticated or animals or humans. You can upload a picture and get information from a community of scientists and naturalists who can help identify it and point you to more information. And so I wanted to use some examples, some really, really great plants, and to see how you can find out about them and how they could fit in your space. So desert willow, see them all around town. They're actually at the top of the Nature Conservancy, and city and other partners all came together to make a climate-ready tree list. And they're at the top of that list because they can thrive on rainwater and they provide so much wonderful habitat. The climate ready list is a list of trees that are thriving now in our area and then also can thrive as we move forward and have more of a climate closer to that of Las Cruces and beyond as time goes on, because trees live a long time. So if you're going to plant a tree, you want it to be able to succeed for decades. And so if you look at the Water Authority's list, you can see you get a rebate allowance of $45. Not my expertise, but that's a great part of their program. And it says they do well in all areas except for the East Mountains. And when you look at our list, you'll see that they flower and fruit, flower in summer to fall. And the habitat value, they're hummingbirds, orioles, are native bees, bumblebees, wasps, and it does note whenever a tree is a climate-ready species. And the flowering season is really important on our list because we want people to create habitat for the full season, so that you don't have all of your flowers blooming in the spring and then there are no resources for pollinators in the summer and the fall. And so we encourage people to look at our list in that way and see when if they have gaps in the if you got to have a gap and don't have as many fall flowers, you can find ones that you can plant. And then when you look over at the Bernalillo County list, it gives you even more detailed information about the biome, whether it's urban or shrub and desert or riparian, the forest along the river. And then if you create some rainwater harvesting, green stormwater infrastructure, set up with a swale for capturing the water and having all the water pool in an area, you can use their information to know where to plant plants, if they need to have a lot of water or if they can thrive in different areas within your yard, depending on the amount of rainwater that will be collected. And so this is another wonderful resource to dive into. And then here on our iNaturalist guide, you can see the more pictures of the plant and sometimes a visitor like that American bumblebee. And then it also contains the details from our plant list in our guide and with a link to the plant list so that you can get information, more information and see the whole plant list. And then something we have added is an area for visiting this plant. And so if we have the plant in our habitat garden at Valle de Oro, or if it's at the biopark, it will be listed over in this part of the guide. And we are actually working with the biopark. They're going to put plant labels that have a QR code that goes to the page in our iNaturalist guide. And so you'll be able to go visit the botanic gardens and walk around and see a plant that you love. And if it has a little QR code, it'll take you to this guide. And so you can learn more about the plant and see if it can have a place in your space. And again, they're just amazing desert willows, just absolutely amazing habitat. And you start looking around town for those pink flowers, and you'll see they're everywhere and often in areas that you wouldn't expect a beautiful flowering tree to be able to survive. And another wonderful plant to feature, starting with trees and shrubs, because trees provide such great shade, but shrubs also provide amazing shade and can really cool your yard, cool the soil under trees in order to support them. And creosote is one that is moving northward with our warming climate, and it provides incredible habitat for pollinators and thrives on very, very little rainwater. And so you can see here again, looking at our plant list, that it's does well everywhere except for the East Mountains, and it flowers spring to fall. If creosote's doing well, it'll start flowering in the spring and just go all the way through the fall. And so it does provide for our pollinators, our bees, and then seeds for birds. And we'll talk more about that. And then you can see with the Bernalillo County information that it does really well in the West Mesa and the East Mesa, and doesn't want to be in the inundation zone where you get lots of rainwater. It can thrive on just several inches of water, and doesn't require that the extra water that so many plants do. And so, again, our iNaturalist guide for more information. And we are continuing to add to our iNaturalist guide. I have interns from UNM who some of them have worked on this, and will continue adding more and more information. So it'll be a place to dive deeply into information about each plant. And so there's just an example of one of the native bees in the Megachile genus that loves creosote. And our valley carpenter bees too. They absolutely love creosote. And now some flowers. In addition to trees and shrubs providing shade and cooling the ground, having our flowers also do that same job, and while providing so much beauty for us to enjoy, and food in many different ways for our wild neighbors. And chocolate flower also smells amazing. Most people think it does smell like chocolate. So if you get a big enough stand, sometimes we'll just walk by and get a huge wave of chocolate. And so does well everywhere in our area. It will bloom from spring to fall, and it's one of the best bloomers. That's why I included this, because it will just keep going and going. And so it's great a resource to have all year long, because it's providing for pollinators when blooming, and then with the seed heads. You can see again where it can benefit with in a green storm water infrastructure situation. But it has such wonderful seeds, and I wanted to point this out. The seed heads are, I think, beautiful, and they are providing for goldfinches. I have not managed to capture a photograph of a goldfinch, but I've seen it many times in our yard. They fly over and land on one of the seed heads, and the stems are not strong, and so then they just ride the seed head down to the ground, and usually behind the plant. So I'm not able to capture the image, but they ride the seed head and down and then pluck those seeds out of and have a wonderful meal. And so that goes on all summer. And when you've had a lot of blossoms, you've got extra seeds that will last into the fall and winter. And so they are great food source for our birds. And you can see they serve both native bees and butterflies, and then again, seed for birds. And all of the plants and featuring do well just on rainwater. Now, as we get hotter, that could change, and sometimes they do require supplemental water. But it is a really important, I think, to be very mindful of the water use. And when you're adding plants, if they do require a little water, make sure to give them some shade. Even plants that say they do well in full sun can almost all of them can use a little bit of shade and do better. We've really been seeing that out at Vita Oro with our habitat area that's in full sun, and ones that say that they are made for full sun. We have one area that gets more shade, and they're doing better there. And so it's really we are in changing times, and so really wanted to encourage everybody to think about the plants that you put in, that so that they are supporting the wildlife and also using our water resources wisely. And another way you can share space with wildlife is to share your garden plants, such as herbs. We've got rosemary here in bloom, and digger bees who are enjoying those blossoms. And so you can have your herbs and have your pollinators too. And they are just ready-made for providing for wildlife. All you have to do is leave some of the flowers. These are just simple chives, and if you love chives and want to eat a lot of them, that's great, but leave some of the stalks and let them bolt, and then you've got wonderful flowers for pollinators. This is a butterfly that I had never seen before in my life, and he was visiting. Wasn't going to the other pollinator plants, was going to the bolting dill or chives. And so it's really amazing the wildlife you can attract when you start leaving some resources out for them. So, wanted to look at some of the xeric superstars, given our situation with our hotter air. I don't know if you've heard the concept of vapor pressure deficit is means that when you've got hot air, it wants more water. The nice way of saying it is that the air is thirsty and it holds more water. That's why we get more intense downpours. But it also means the air is looking for water, and it's pulling water from the soil, pulling water directly from plants. And so even if we have a lot of precipitation, which we have not been having, the plants are going to be a little more stressed just from the heat, trying to pull the water out of them. And you may have noticed this year some flowers in your yard have not been blooming, perhaps, and some thankfully are still going strong, but many are like, okay, well, it's too hot, I am not going to use my resources to make a flower. And so those that really thrive in those drought conditions are ones that are really going to be more and more important going forward. And so cacti, obviously, really great at weathering droughts. And so getting them established in your yard is a wonderful thing. And when they are in bloom, pollinators just love them. Apache plume is another just incredible plant and does so well. It's absolutely wonderful for pollinators of all sorts, bees and butterflies and bumblebees. You may have noticed on the in our plant list, I have put little icons for the both for the rainwater and for butterflies and for bumblebees. And so just to be able to draw your attention to those plants because butterflies, you've probably heard, are suffering worldwide. And so we want to do everything we can to support them. And bumblebees are one of our most obvious and identifiable native bees. And they too, many species of bumblebees are not doing well in our country, and populations are dwindling. And so we really want to support them. And you're supporting other native bees when you're supporting bumblebees. And then, like other flowers, they make beautiful flowers, and then in the process, they're making seeds for birds, and so have just amazing habitat. Red yucca. Yuccas are another wonderful source of food for wildlife. They thrive. You've seen them in very xeric areas. They provide for hummingbirds. They're one of the most xeric plants that provide nectar for hummingbirds. Native bees love them when they form seeds or have insects on them. They provide for bush tits are tiny little gray birds that fly around in clouds. This was just on the right, a strip next to a busy street where a yucca was thriving and sparrows were visiting. And so plants, it's amazing the resources they provide for our wild neighbors. And so getting more of our native plants into our landscape is just so important. And chamisa. Now, if you look at the scientific name, nauseosa, many people hate the smell. I actually love it. Didn't know that people didn't like it, but it may be something like cilantro that some people have taste like soap, and some people love it. But what we do know is that pollinators love it. I actually uh, found a chamisa at an event one day at a park, and there were 5 different butterflies on the chamisa at once, in all in sight at the same time. It's incredible, and it does flower in the fall, and so it's one of those important flowering species for supporting our fall pollinators. And sunflowers. If you don't want to look at a bunch of plant lists and figure out, some people love diving into all of this information, and some people are like, okay, I want something simple. For one, we have resources in at the Backyard Refuge program where we have in our introductory guide little plant palettes, and this is one of them from our guide about sunflowers, because sunflowers, if that's all you can do, plant some sunflowers, and they'll provide for our so many different wild neighbors. And so I wanted to look at 2 in particular. The mule's ear. This is one of the sunflower species that does bloom in the spring. Most of them are more summer to fall, and so this is a great addition to your habitat to have some uh, sunflowers blooming in the spring. And so they are wonderful for butterflies and our native bees, and again, provide seeds for birds. And prairie sunflowers. These you will see volunteers everywhere. This was on a sidewalk crack, and they do so well and on so little water. And so they can take some more water. You might notice I have water use. It's dry plus a little water, but then they survive in sidewalk cracks. So they it may depend on the plant, but they are one of our most xeric superstars as far as providing for pollinators. And after they're finished providing for pollinators, such as this longhorn bee, when they start drying, they're still providing for bees and butterflies. But when they're turn the seeds, you have all you're left with is a seed head. That's when the goldfinches move in, and goldfinches and other seed-eating birds love dried sunflowers. And it is, as Amos mentioned, the English gardens. When a flower has stopped blooming, that flower needs to go away. It is not seen as beautiful any longer. But I want to offer the idea that the goldfinch that comes to visit is the beauty, and people like dried flower arrangements, and so I want more people to think of our dried native plants when they're providing that seed for birds as dried flower arrangements. So. And so flowers, more sunflowers on the left that are dried with a goldfinch, but also grasses. Our native grasses are beautiful. And studies have shown that native grasses that are not cut off like our turf lawns they provide so much more cooling to the ground. And so if you want a cooler yard, having native grasses instead of a turf lawn is really, really easy. If you can establish those native grasses, and makes it so much cooler, and it's making those seeds for our birds and mammals. They're just wonderful to add to your yard. And like the flowers, a common practice is to let the beautiful grasses be all summer, and then when they dry, to cut them off. But landscape designers use them in landscapes to provide beauty in the winter, so that you have a refuge that is as beautiful year round. And so you can certainly see with this sand lovegrass the gorgeous feathery seed heads, and so they provide those seeds and beauty. And this just is an example of the lesser goldfinch having a meal with a prairie sunflower. We have a participant whose neighbors always complained, and was always pointing out their lesser goldfinches. The yellow flowers have been replaced by yellow birds. And another thing that you can do, we're going to move on to some landscaping practices. And it takes thousands of caterpillars and other bites of foods, other insects, to make a baby bird. And so bird parents are out there looking for food always. And if we are wed to the idea that a hole in a leaf is a horrible, horrible thing, and spray pesticides on those plants, we are taking away food from baby birds and countless other members of our wild community. And so I like the appreciating dried sunflowers, appreciating leaves that have little bites taken out of them is really something that we could shift our awareness and our appreciation of our living world. And so nature is out there trying to make their way, and it's so easy to make it easier on them by not spraying pesticides and herbicides that have countless deaths associated with them. Our insect populations are plummeting, and we're continuing in agriculture and in homes, though, to put billions of pounds of pesticides onto our plants. And so that's a shift that really would benefit our entire living world. And so want to encourage you to consider that and be excited when you have little holes in your leaves and know that you're contributing to that to our baby birds and the rest of the living world. And I wanted to point out on the right, that is one of our tiny little gray bush tits. This was taken in a parking lot along the I-25 feeder road. And there was a bush tit collecting caterpillars from one tree and flying over to another, both non-native trees, but luckily the insects like and the caterpillars like the trees, and that's where they were nesting. That's where they found food and shelter, and so habitat really can be everywhere. Another easy thing is to leave some leaves where they fall. And I recognize that there are places that you don't want a lot of leaves, but leaving some leaves, as many as you can, is really helpful. One tip we got from Judith Phillips, a native plant guru here, was to, if you have people who don't like the look of a lot of leaves in your yard, if you rake them so that they have an edge. People who don't like wildness, some usually like edges, and so make some edges, and it will look intentional. That's one thing when you are leaving your space to be a little wilder, making it obvious that you're caring for the space, and is really important. And so when there's a certain amount, like a path going through, or edges to your leaf litter, that really does give the signal that there's care, and that is very important for people to accept a little more wildness. Um, we have a very wild yard, and I do try to make some indication that it's intentional. But and we have lots of people who don't love it, and I'm grateful for that. But because we leave our leaves because they provide habitat for lizards, sparrows go foraging for seeds that have fallen. Insects overwinter to provide for food for lizards and birds. And so that leaf litter also acts as a natural mulch, keeps the soil cooler and retains the moisture. And so it's just so easy to benefit wildlife in that way. Now, when you're deciding on plants to add, if there are plants that you absolutely love that require a little extra water, put them near your bird bath, and that way they'll get an extra splash of water every day when you're putting fresh water into your bird bath. And that is an easy way to have a habitat that's easy to maintain. So you'll be seeing those plants and knowing that, oh, we need a little bit extra water, and leave the hose running while you're filling up the bath. And so thinking about things like that, it's really important, especially when we're dealing with plants that do require more resources. So in addition to leaf litter, Plant-based mulch, such as wood chips, is so good for keeping our ground cooler, and it's also providing habitat, especially if you leave little patches of bare dirt. So um, our native bees, 70% of them nest in the ground here in the Southwest, and 30% nest in cavities such as uh, dead stems from from plants. And so providing some bare patches of dirt near your pollinator plants, you'll be providing for bee nesting sites. And so here on the left, you can see the bee tucked in and digging a hole right there under the mulch. We have another bare patch near some flowers and saw this happening one day. So native bees will dig from several inches to a few feet into the ground to make their nests. And so this is a bee that's excavating that hole. And the neat thing is that this nest is going to here. That ant is running for cover. The nest is going to be here, and then you won't know that the nest is there. It doesn't like, there we go. And so until you have more bees come out. This is a pollinator plant with some bees right near the nesting site, and they were just hanging out in the flowers. I thought I was going to take a video until they left, and 4 minutes later they were still sitting there and just watching the world go by. But that bee nest that was being excavated, that is just that bare patch of ground, and then it had a roadrunner standing on it and taking a dust bath. So those bare patches of ground, again, very, very easy way to benefit wildlife is have some bare patches of ground near your pollinator plants. And one of the landscape architecture professors at UNM said that when she found out there were bees sleeping in her flowers, it just changed her world. If you go out and look at globe mallow flowers, so often you will find a bee taking a nap. And we had some in our yard who were taking a nap toward sunset, and I discovered they were still in there. Early in the morning and then took off as it warmed up. And so it's amazing that it's the joy I find in finding our wild neighbors in our space, in our habitat. And so glow mallows are one of those plants that do really, really well in sidewalk cracks, which has actually led some people to think that they are weeds. They are amazing native plants. And there are bees who this is their flower. That is the one flower that they use. And so it's a personal mission of mine to get as many globe mallow out there in the world to support our native bees. Even bumblebees love them, and they do so well on rainwater. Another plant that's long blooming, starting in the spring, scorpion weed. You find this more on the west side, but I've seen them in many places throughout the Albuquerque area. Beautiful flowers, but since they're volunteers, many people consider them to be a weed, and so just want everyone to thinking about weed in a new way. Spiny golden weed, which I was happy to find had another name of Lacey tansy aster, because it's this beautiful little uh, yellow flower that again does really, really well in sidewalk cracks. This is in our front yard next to our mailbox. We've got spiny golden weed growing and being visited by a pygmy blue butterfly, which are about the size of a fingernail. They're tiny. And silverleaf nightshade is on the noxious weed list for the city. It is actually a native plant, but it's very bad for cows. And so you don't want anyone eating it. But if you have a patch somewhere in your yard where it won't have visitors other than the bumblebees and carpenter bees who love them, then they can actually be habitat too. And Judith Phillips, again, our native plant expert, just said offhand one time, humans are pickier than wildlife can afford to be. And it is so true. We want our green lawns and are upset about dandelions and being beautiful little yellow flowers in the green lawn, which I've never quite understood. But again, you can have your beautiful goldfinches visiting your dandelion seeds and eating those seeds. Uh, Dandelions, another globe mallows and dandelions, two of my big plants I want to promote because the dandelions and other asters, that fluff is used by hummingbirds. And so, in addition to not using pesticides and poisoning hummingbird food, because remember, you can't build a baby out of sugar. Hummingbirds are out there collecting tiny insects to feed to their babies, and but they use that fluff to make a nice soft nest, and the nests are wrapped with and built with spider webs, and spider webs stretch and hold everything together, hold the nest to the branch or to your light fixture. Find hummingbird nests in amazing places, but it's spider webs that make that possible. So leaving some spider webs in the eaves around your house is actually providing nesting material for hummingbirds. And so with these shifts in our uh, aesthetics and perception of our world, to accepting a little more wildness and looking at weeds in a different way. I love this quote from Robin Wall Kimmerer that in reshaping our thinking about dandelions and other so-called weeds, we might reshape our entire relationship with the living world. And that is all that I and others are asking, is to reshape our relationship with the living world. And we can do that so easily here in cities and in our yards. And so I really want to everyone to join in. Uh, Another example of that is bagworms. I had no idea that I would appreciate bagworms until I discovered that bush tits use the silk from bagworm cocoons to build their nests. And so once you start looking at the world, it's amazing the connectivity you see and interrelationships with different species in the world. And so that was a fun one to discover. So we are getting close. I want to tell you about our Backyard Refuge program. We have tons of resources to help you share your space with wildlife, whether you're just planting some sunflowers or wanting to do a larger project. You get a sign to put in your yard that declares your yard to be a backyard refuge. We've had people who have had neighbors who have complained about things like dried sunflower heads, who once they put their sign up and said, "Look, this is intentional. We want this to be this way for wildlife," and we have all of these government agencies who agree. Their neighbors stop bothering them. You also get a rain barrel from Bernalillo County, even if you don't live in Bernalillo County. And so they're great supporters of the program. And you're joining a community of people who are taking care of wildlife. And it's so fun to see your neighbors with their signs as well, and know that your wild neighbors in your yard have other places to visit in your neighborhood. So again, you get that rain barrel just for certifying your yard. And if you want to dive into rainwater harvesting, it's incredible. And there's so many great resources at uh, Bernalillo County's website. And then again, we've got tons of resources on our website. We have a 28-page guide for people who found that overwhelming. We've made a smaller one, the Share Space with Wildlife, that we have in both English and Spanish. We've got a workbook, again, our plant list, and even a coloring book for kids. So I will could stop there. Although, let me actually mention we do have a little flow chart. If you think you don't have habitat in your yard, you probably do, because we have it set up so that people, even with a container garden on a balcony, can participate. So it's not backyard is loosely defined, as is Albuquerque. And when I mentioned the community, we are mapping all of our backyard refuges, and so that we can see habitat connectivity at the level for bees, where we have a lot of work to do, and for birds, where we're doing better. That's how far the uh, little blue areas around each backyard refuge. It's how far a bird will go out to explore and forage. And so we've got a lot of great connected habitat for birds, and really want to get more for bees. So if you don't think you can have habitat, go to our website, do this flow chart. And if you have questions beyond what we can cover today, please email me at laurel@friendsofvidaoro.org.